Lytudiep greets all dear viewers, wishing everyone a good day. Jame truly loves Lytudiep, but why does he still want to find parents for Nee? It's not because he loves Nee, but he wants to push Nee away from Jame and Lytudiep's world. But he finds it difficult that without Nee, Lytudiep no longer feels happy when he is with him. Right, Nee is the bond between Jame and Lytudiep. Do you want Jame to reluctantly push Nee away? Today, let's find out this story together. James, a successful CEO accustomed to contracts, deals, and deadlines, never expected his life to shift so profoundly because of two people, Lytudiep and little Nee. Every morning, he watched from a distance as Diep lovingly tied Nee's hair, washed her face, and carefully prepared breakfast. Diep wasn't Nee's biological mother, but the tenderness in her touch, the way she crouched down to Nee's level, and the quiet, nurturing strength in her voice, it all felt unmistakably maternal. Nee, though young, was incredibly well-mannered, always soft-spoken, and filled the house with a calm warmth. Diep had taken Nee in when the girl had nowhere else to go. Their bond had grown naturally, effortlessly, forged through shared meals, early mornings, and quiet hugs. James watched it all unfold, at first with curiosity, and then with admiration. That admiration grew into love, not a fleeting crush, but a deep, sincere love for Diep's resilience, compassion, and unwavering commitment to the child who wasn't her own, but whom she treated as a gift. James found himself changing. He began waking up early, joining them for breakfast, offering to teach Diep how to ride a motorbike to make school drop-offs easier. He even offered to buy her a new bike. He wanted to support her, to be part of her world, a world that now included the innocent and endearing presence of Nee. He smiled more often. His days felt lighter. The more time he spent around Nee, the more he realized that children had a way of healing, of making heavy hearts feel just a little less burdened. But love, especially love in real life, is never just about warm feelings. James belonged to a prestigious family. His father, a strict and traditional man, had always raised him with discipline and expectation. Appearances mattered. Respectability mattered. And when he found out that James was not only in love with a woman who had a child, but was considering officially adopting that child, he erupted with disapproval. He demanded that James's mother return abroad to take care of his business there so he could come back to Vietnam himself, to handle the matter with James and Diep. It was clear, he wanted to stop the adoption and break James away from this unacceptable relationship. James, caught in the middle, was torn. He had spoken with his father, tried to explain, tried to defend his choices, but his father was unrelenting. In his mind, his son was meant to marry a smart, beautiful, accomplished woman, one who came with no baggage, a woman who didn't carry the label of single mother. James never said outright that he wanted to push Nee away. He never told Diep to give up the adoption, but in the silences, in the hesitation, in the way he avoided certain conversations, Diep could feel it. The weight of family pressure had begun to creep into the corners of their home. Diep, for all her gentleness, was no fool. She could see James struggling. She could see that even though he said he loved her, and she believed him, he hadn't yet found the strength to protect what mattered most. She began to ask herself, what kind of love is it that can't stand up for your child? One afternoon, they sat beneath a quiet tree by the roadside, a place they often stopped to talk. Diep looked at James and said softly, Nee may not be my biological daughter, but in every way, she is mine now. I don't want to let her go. I want to protect her, raise her, love her. That's my choice. James nodded, slowly, his eyes heavy with thought. He admitted he hadn't figured out how to confront his father again. Not fully. That despite his age and position, his father's disapproval still weighed on him. He loved Diep. He cared for Nee. But somewhere deep down, he was still afraid of disappointing his family, of losing their support. of stepping outside the life that had always been scripted for him. Deep heard all of this in silence. Her heart ached, not from anger, but from the growing realization that love, even when real, isn't always enough. If a man couldn't defend the child she loved with her whole heart, how could he be the father figure he needed? She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply said, "I understand," because she did. She understood that James was a good man, but not yet strong enough to go against the storm. She didn't blame him, but she also knew she couldn't wait forever. Later that evening, as she tucked me into bed, Deep looked down at the little girl's sleeping face and knew, with painful clarity, that no matter what happened with James, she would never let anyone tear them apart. Not even the man she loved. James watched from the doorway, hands in his pockets, the weight of his own indecision pressing on his chest. He loved Deep. He adored me. But love, he was beginning to realize, meant choosing, meant fighting, meant letting go of comfort, tradition, and even a father's approval. He wasn't ready, not yet. And in that moment, Deep quietly decided, if he couldn't choose them, then she would choose for him. She would walk away, not because she didn't love him, but because she loved me more. Because real love, the kind that truly matters, never hesitates when a child's future is on the line.